A silent epidemic, the scale of pornography. Use every single day, over 100 million people around the world access pornography websites. That number is equivalent to the entire population of countries like Mexico or Japan. In just 1 second, over 28,000 users are watching adult content online. These figures are staggering, not just because of their size, but because of what they reveal. A silent epidemic that's reshaping human behavior, intimacy, and emotional well-being on a global scale. The pornography industry now generates over $100 billion a year, surpassing the annual revenue of Hollywood and major sports leagues combined. This is not just entertainment. It's a psychological force that has quietly woven itself into the fabric of modern life. And yet, despite its massive influence, porn remains a taboo topic, often discussed in hushed tones or avoided entirely. That silence allows it to grow, unchecked, unexamined, and misunderstood. The danger lies not just in the content itself, but in the normalization of overexposure to extreme, artificial stimulation. Porn is available 24/7 for free at the swipe of a finger. It doesn't ask for emotional effort or vulnerability. And over time, this convenience begins to replace real connection, real desire, and real fulfillment. This epidemic is not marked by visible symptoms. It doesn't announce itself with scars or sickness. Instead, it hides in plain sight, in lost motivation, emotional detachment, declining intimacy, and rising disconnection. We are not just witnessing a shift in sexual behavior. We are witnessing a cultural transformation of intimacy, and it's happening faster than anyone expected. Before we can heal, we must be willing to look clearly and courageously at just how deep this habit runs. Physical and emotional consequences in young men. Just a few decades ago, erectile dysfunction was almost unheard of in healthy young men. Today, it's becoming increasingly common, and not because of physical illness, but because of something far more subtle: overexposure to pornography. According to recent studies, nearly 40% of men between the ages of 18 and 30 report difficulties maintaining satisfying sexual relationships. Behind closed doors, what used to be a private issue is now a widespread phenomenon, and it's affecting not just the body, but the heart. Pornography rewires the brain to expect constant novelty, instant gratification, and exaggerated stimulation. Real relationships don't work that way. They require patience, vulnerability, and presence, qualities that become harder to access when the mind is conditioned by artificial extremes. Over time, young men begin to feel disconnected from their partners, uninterested in physical intimacy, and emotionally numb. Many report feeling ashamed, confused, and frustrated, stuck between what they desire and what their brain has been trained to crave. It doesn't end in the bedroom. The emotional fallout bleeds into everyday life: strained relationships, lack of motivation, and a growing sense of isolation. What was once thought of as harmless escapism becomes a silent barrier between people, between men and women, between friends, even between the self and the soul. This isn't just about sex. It's about connection. It's about how millions of young men are unknowingly sabotaging their ability to bond, to feel deeply, to love authentically, and most don't even know it's happening. The problem hides in plain sight, behind screens, under stress, and within the quiet moments when connection should bloom, but never does. Until we recognize this hidden crisis for what it is, we will continue to raise generations of young men who feel more alone than ever, in a world more connected than ever. Physical and emotional consequences in young men. Erectile dysfunction was once considered a condition affecting older men. But today, it's quietly becoming common among young men, many of them healthy, active, and under 30. The cause? It's not physical illness. It's psychological desensitization caused by overexposure to pornography. Studies show that nearly 40% of men aged 18 to 30 experience sexual difficulties with real partners. Their brains have become so conditioned to digital stimulation, instant, varied, and extreme, that real-life intimacy feels dull by comparison. What's worse is that they often don't know why it's happening. They feel confused, ashamed, and disconnected from their partners. But the damage doesn't stop with sex. It extends into the emotional core of their relationships. Many young men report feeling numb, unable to connect emotionally, unwilling to be vulnerable, and unsure of how to navigate intimacy beyond physical pleasure. Real relationships demand patience, presence, and trust. Porn trains the mind for speed, novelty, and control. This creates a growing emotional divide. Conversations become shallow. Eye contact feels awkward. Affection becomes transactional. These young men aren't broken, but they are misled. They've been trained to chase stimulation, not connection. And in the silence that follows these struggles, many retreat further, back into screens, into isolation, into habits that slowly strip away their capacity for real love. This is more than a private issue. It's a cultural wound, one that we must learn to name if we hope to heal. Psychological fallout, anxiety, depression, and isolation. Pornography doesn't just alter how we experience pleasure, it slowly erodes how we experience life. For many, what begins as a harmless habit evolves into a psychological trap. According to studies published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, regular pornography users report significantly higher levels of anxiety, depression, and social isolation. The brain, constantly bombarded by artificial highs, begins to dull its natural emotional responses. What once sparked joy, hobbies, friendships, goals, now feels flat. Motivation fades, focus disappears. Life, in its raw and unpredictable form, becomes harder to engage with. And in its place, users often retreat into the one thing that promises certainty and control: the screen. Ironically, the more they turn to pornography for relief, the more disconnected they feel from themselves and others. This loop creates a deeper sense of loneliness. Loneliness, even shame. Many report feeling numb inside, as if the world no longer reaches them. What they don't realize is that this emotional blunting isn't a flaw in their character. It's a side effect of neurological overstimulation and internal depletion. Porn doesn't just hijack the brain's reward system, it rewires self-perception. Once confident, driven individuals begin doubting their worth. They isolate themselves, not because they want to be alone, but because connection now feels too foreign, too distant, too fragile. And yet, behind every statistic is a silent question. Why do I feel so empty? The answer for many begins with the awareness of what's been quietly stolen, the neuroscience behind porn addiction. To truly understand the power of pornography, we must look at what it does to the brain. At the core of it all is the brain's reward system, a delicate mechanism designed to help us survive by reinforcing behaviors that bring us pleasure, like eating, bonding, or achieving goals. This system is largely driven by dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation, desire, and satisfaction. But pornography hijacks this system. Studies show that watching porn releases a surge of dopamine far greater than most natural experiences. The brain, overwhelmed by this spike, begins to adapt. Over time, it requires more stimulation just to feel the same excitement, a process known as desensitization. What used to satisfy no longer does. This is why many users escalate to more extreme or novel content. But there's a dark irony at play. In the pursuit of pleasure, the brain's ability to feel pleasure shrinks. The same mechanism that once rewarded us now begins to numb us. Everyday joys like conversation, touch, or achievement feel less engaging. Life becomes muted. This is not about morality, it's about biology. Porn doesn't just entertain, it alters the architecture of the mind. And for many, this rewiring leads to a deep internal conflict, a craving for more, paired with a growing emptiness that more can never fill. Understanding this science isn't meant to shame, it's meant to empower. Because once we see how our brains have been manipulated, we can begin the process of reclaiming control. The hedonistic trap, pleasure that destroys. Pleasure pornography is often seen as harmless indulgence, just another form of entertainment. But as German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer warned, the more we chase pleasure, the more we suffer. He described desire as a trap. Each time it is fulfilled, another craving quickly replaces it, leading to a cycle of endless dissatisfaction. This is precisely how pornography functions. It offers the illusion of control, endless novelty, and instant gratification. But the reward is fleeting, and with each repetition, the brain's capacity for real pleasure shrinks. The more we seek stimulation, the less we feel. What begins as a search for enjoyment becomes a form of emotional erosion. This is what makes porn a hedonistic trap, a pursuit of pleasure that paradoxically destroys the very system designed to feel it. In time, users find themselves stuck between craving and emptiness. The dopamine rush fades faster, excitement feels mechanical, and genuine joy, found in real connection, in creation, in love, grows distant. Pleasure is not the problem, it's the illusion that more of it will finally satisfy the void. But that void cannot be filled from the outside. Real fulfillment requires moderation, self-awareness, and a deeper understanding of what we're truly seeking. Because sometimes the most dangerous addictions aren't the ones that cause pain, but the ones that feel like pleasure. Porn in the addicted brain changes similar to drug abuse. Most people associate addiction with substances, alcohol, cocaine, opioids. But recent neuroscience reveals something more unsettling. Pornography affects the brain in eerily similar ways. According to a study from the University of Cambridge, compulsive porn users show brain activity patterns nearly identical to those of cocaine addicts. At the center of this transformation is the nucleus accumbens, the brain's pleasure hub. Repeated exposure to high-intensity porn floods this area with dopamine, causing structural and functional changes over time. The result? Increased tolerance, cravings, and loss of control, the same markers that define substance addiction. But unlike drugs, porn is accessible, legal, and socially tolerated. There are no needles, no bottles, just pixels on a screen. And yet, the impact can be just as devastating. What begins as a coping mechanism can slowly become a dependency, hijacking motivation, focus, and emotional presence. Even more concerning, studies show that frequent porn use diminishes the production of oxytocin and vasopressin, hormones responsible for bonding, trust, and emotional connection. It's not just the brain that's rewired, it's the heart. This isn't about shame, it's about awareness. Because when we understand that porn rewires the brain like a drug, we can begin to treat it like any other addiction, with honesty, compassion, and the tools needed to recover and rebuild. Hormonal disruption and emotional disconnection. Porn doesn't just affect the brain's reward system, it also disrupts the very chemistry that allows us to bond with others. Two key hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin, are essential for forming emotional connections, trust, and intimacy. But studies, including research from the University of Montreal, show that regular porn consumers often have lower levels of these hormones, especially men. Why does this matter? Because without these hormonal signals, the ability to feel closeness begins to fade. Physical intimacy becomes mechanical. Eye contact feels uncomfortable. Even moments of affection can feel hollow. Over time, the emotional bridge between two people, especially in romantic relationships, starts to collapse. Many users describe a strange numbness, the inability to connect, even when they want to. It's not that they don't care. It's that their brain and body have stopped responding to real human presence. Their emotional compass becomes misaligned. This is the silent cost of pornography. It doesn't just isolate you from others. It quietly erodes your capacity to love, not through trauma or rejection, but through overstimulation and hormonal imbalance. When pleasure becomes predictable and on demand, the spontaneity of genuine connection can feel awkward or even boring. Rebuilding these bonds takes time, but it starts with recognizing what's been lost and why. Because without emotional presence, even the most passionate relationship begins to feel like two people standing miles apart. Neuroplasticity and the hope for recovery. There's a quiet hope hidden within the brain's most extraordinary trait, neuroplasticity, its ability to rewire, heal, and adapt. For those struggling with pornography addiction, this offers more than comfort. It offers a way forward. No matter how long someone has been caught in the cycle, the brain is not permanently broken. It can learn to feel again. Studies show that when individuals abstain from pornography for even a few weeks, dopamine sensitivity begins to return to normal levels. Motivation improves. Emotional presence increases. And slowly, genuine pleasure, once muted, begins to resurface. This process, often called rebooting, is the first step toward reclaiming the self. But like all healing, it's not instant. During this transition, many face mood swings, cravings, and doubt. That's not failure, that's the brain readjusting. It's detoxifying from years of overstimulation, rediscovering how to function without artificial input. Neuroplasticity reminds us that addiction is not destiny. The damage done can be undone, not just chemically, but emotionally and spiritually. With each day of clarity, the brain begins to build new pathways, ones rooted in presence, creativity, intimacy, and peace. As Nietzsche said, "That which does not kill me makes me stronger." For many, quitting porn is not just a recovery, it's a rebirth into a life that feels fully alive again. Philosophical roots: desire, emptiness, in the search for meaning. Behind every craving lies a deeper question. What are we really trying to fill? Pornography, for many, is not just a source of stimulation, it's an escape from loneliness, from stress, from the aching silence of modern life. But as philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Schopenhauer observed, desire is not just longing for something, it is the symptom of something missing within. Sartre called it a lack of being. We pursue fleeting pleasures not because they fulfill us, but because we fear what lies beneath the stillness. Porn, in this sense, becomes a mirror, not of our lust, but of our disconnection, a digital attempt to feel something, anything, in a world that often feels hollow. Buddhist philosophy offers a counterpoint. It teaches that suffering arises not from pain, but from attachment and craving. When we chase pleasure to avoid discomfort, we feed a cycle that never ends. The more we run from emptiness, the more it grows. True satisfaction doesn't come from indulging every desire. It comes from understanding where those desires come from sitting with discomfort long enough to hear what it's trying to teach us. Porn doesn't just exploit desire, it exposes a crisis of meaning. And the only way out is not through more stimulation, but through deeper presence with ourselves and with life. Empathy and emotional disconnection. One of the most overlooked effects of pornography is its quiet erosion of empathy, the ability to feel with and for others. Studies show that long-term porn consumption, especially when habitual, leads to a reduced capacity to connect emotionally. It's not just about what happens on the screen, it's about what no longer happens in real life. When the brain is constantly flooded with intense, artificial imagery, it adapts by blunting emotional response. Over time, this makes real interactions, conversations, eye contact, vulnerability, feel less engaging, even uncomfortable. Many users report struggling to maintain deep conversations or to be emotionally present with a partner. Empathy isn't just a social skill. It's a vital part of human connection. Without it, relationships become transactional. We stop seeing others as full emotional beings and start seeing them as objects, something porn conditions the brain to do. This disconnect doesn't just affect romantic relationships. It spills into friendships, family bonds, and how we interact with the world. Emotional numbness becomes a shield, one that protects but also isolates. Rebuilding empathy requires more than quitting a habit. It requires slowing down, becoming present, and relearning how to feel. Not just pleasure, but presence, compassion, and depth. Because without empathy, we may still be surrounded by people, but we'll feel profoundly, painfully alone. Philosophical healing: simplicity, moderation, and meaningful pleasure. If pornography represents excess, then healing begins with simplicity. Philosophers like Epicurus taught that true happiness doesn't come from indulgence, but from appreciating what is already within reach. In his view, the good life is not built on chasing more, but on being content with less. This doesn't mean rejecting pleasure, it means redefining it. Pleasure, when pursued without mindfulness, becomes noise. But when rooted in presence and intention, it becomes nourishment for the body, the mind, and the soul. Porn offers a simulation of intimacy, a shortcut to stimulation, but it lacks depth, context, and meaning. Contrast that with real-life pleasures: a quiet walk, an honest conversation, a moment of laughter with someone you love. These aren't loud, but they're real, and their impact lasts far longer than a screen's flicker. As Schopenhauer warned, desire can enslave us if left unchecked. But with awareness, it can guide us inward towards self-understanding and emotional resilience. Healing from porn addiction isn't about restriction. It's about returning to what is natural, sustainable, and truly fulfilling. Rebuilding pleasure doesn't require grand transformations. It begins with a shift in attention, from what stimulates us instantly to what sustains us deeply. In that shift, we don't lose pleasure. We reclaim it. Science-based recovery, CBT, mindfulness, exercise breaking free from pornography addiction isn't just about willpower, it's about strategy. Modern science offers powerful tools to help the brain heal, rewire, and reconnect with real, lasting forms of pleasure. One of the most effective is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a method that helps individuals identify distorted thought patterns and replace them with healthier, more constructive ones. Studies show CBT has a 78% success rate in treating porn addiction. Another transformative practice is mindfulness meditation. Instead of reacting impulsively to urges, mindfulness trains the brain to observe cravings without judgment. Over time, this increases emotional regulation and decreases compulsive behavior. It gives individuals the space to pause, reflect, and choose differently. Then there's physical exercise, one of the most overlooked but powerful recovery tools. Activities like weightlifting, running, or yoga don't just improve mood. They naturally release dopamine and endorphins, helping restore the brain's chemical balance. Exercise rebuilds self-discipline, relieves stress, and reconnects the individual with their body in a positive way. These strategies aren't quick fixes, but they are evidence-based, and they work. Together, they create a foundation for deep healing, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Recovery isn't just about removing porn. It's about rebuilding a life that makes it unnecessary, and science is showing us how. Innovative methods, TMS, VR, and creative rewiring. As neuroscience advances, so do the tools we have to recover from addiction. Beyond therapy and lifestyle changes, cutting-edge technologies are opening new doors for those struggling with pornography dependency. One such breakthrough is transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, a non-invasive method that uses magnetic pulses to stimulate specific areas of the brain, particularly those related to impulse control and emotional regulation. Early studies show promising results: reduced cravings, improved mood, and better focus. Another frontier is virtual reality, VR, which is being used not to stimulate, but to retrain emotional response. Certain simulations are designed to foster empathy, rebuild human connection, and help users reconnect with real-world intimacy. VR in this context becomes not a distraction, but a tool for psychological reorientation. Yet innovation doesn't always require technology. The brain is naturally wired to seek novelty and challenge. Engaging in creative pursuits, like learning an instrument, painting, or even journaling, can activate the same reward circuits hijacked by porn. These activities create new patterns of pleasure, grounded in growth rather than escape. Recovery is not just about resisting impulses, it's about replacing them. The future of healing lies in combining ancient wisdom with modern innovation, science with soul, because the goal isn't just to break free, it's to become someone who no longer needs the cage at all. Cultural consequences, sex, intimacy, and respect. Distorted by pornography doesn't just affect individuals, it reshapes how society views sex, intimacy, and respect. As screens become the primary source of sexual education for millions, the line between fiction and reality begins to blur. Over time, distorted expectations take root about bodies, about performance, about what love and desire are supposed to look like. Research from Stanford University links prolonged exposure to porn with more tolerant attitudes towards sexual aggression and objectification. In many cases, repeated viewing desensitizes the mind, reducing empathy and normalizing dominance over mutual respect. Consent becomes unclear, intimacy becomes performance, and sex becomes disconnected from meaning. These shifts ripple outward. In relationships, partners feel unseen, compared, and misunderstood. In young adults, anxiety around sex increases, along with dissatisfaction and fear of vulnerability. The screen becomes the standard. Real human connection becomes awkward, too slow, too raw. Porn sells perfection, but at the cost of reality. It presents intimacy without emotion, pleasure without connection, and bodies without flaws. The result is a generation caught between craving closeness and fearing it. Cultural healing begins with awareness, with honest conversations, with education rooted in empathy, and with a collective decision to reclaim the sacredness of intimacy. Because sex isn't just a physical act. It's a mirror of how we see each other and ourselves. The journey to self-mastery, from addiction to authentic connection. Overcoming pornography to addiction is not just about removing a habit. It's about reclaiming the self. It is a journey of self-mastery, a return to wholeness. As philosopher Viktor Frankl once said, when we can no longer change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. This journey is rarely easy. It demands patience, honesty, and courage. There will be setbacks, there will be moments of doubt, but in choosing to walk away from artificial pleasure, you're choosing something far more powerful: authentic connection. Self-mastery isn't about perfection. It's about learning to govern your impulses rather than being governed by them. It's the ability to sit with discomfort, to feel fully, and to pursue meaning over momentary escape. In that pursuit, something changes. You begin to reconnect with your body, your values, your relationships, your creativity, and your purpose. As you heal, you become more present. Love feels deeper. Conversations become real. Life, once numbed by overstimulation, starts to breathe again. This isn't just a personal transformation. It's a rebellion against a culture of instant gratification. It's a declaration that your mind, your heart, and your attention are worth protecting. Because the goal isn't just to quit porn. The goal is to live a life so rich, so connected, and so full that you never need to escape from it again. Life lesson: from numbness to presence. In a world flooded with instant gratification, pornography offers a tempting escape, but it comes at a cost. It rewires the brain, dulls emotional sensitivity, and slowly disconnects us from what matters most: intimacy, creativity, purpose, and human connection. The real danger isn't just in the content, it's in what we stop feeling. Joy becomes harder to access. Empathy fades. Life gets quieter, not in peace, but in numbness. But there's hope. The same brain that was rewired can be rewired again. Through mindfulness, meaningful relationships, physical activity, and creative engagement, we can restore the ability to feel deeply and live fully. Healing isn't about shame, it's about choice. It's about choosing a life that doesn't rely on artificial stimulation to feel alive. It's about reclaiming your time, attention, and emotional presence. True pleasure isn't found in excess. It's found in simplicity, connection, and purpose. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. The journey back to yourself begins with one decision: to stop escaping and start living.